Welcome to Embracing New Life, where we explore the world of mental health, offer hope, and spark important conversations as we explore the intersections of mental health resources and Christianity and those who stand in the gap. Today we're starting a journey with a question that has intrigued humanity for centuries. What is a human? This two-part series invites us to look deeply at what it means to be human, exploring the design, purpose, and potential God has instilled in us. While we won't fully exhaust the topic, we hope these episodes encourage us all to reflect on the human condition, God's design for us, and what it truly means to thrive. Here are a few quick snippets from today's episode.
I am of now great confidence that what the true human needs are is to love and be loved, receive love, and to know others and be known by others.
That we had the C.S. Lewis quote of, to love anything is going to mean just heartache, and if you don't want to, have heartache, in a sense, you're just going to bury it alive in a box, basically. And so, how do we navigate those dangerous waters of needing safety in order to be known and loved and vulnerable, but also knowing when somebody is safe enough, in a sense, to risk it?
So I've observed that when we live congruent with our design, we flourish, and when we live incongruent with the design, we flounder.
You know what time it is. Grab your favorite beverage, find a comfortable spot, and sit back and relax. Or, if you prefer, take us along on a walk or while you get things done. Either way, let's dive into today's episode. Okay, today we're going to be looking at what is a person, how do people thrive in this world? And to lead it off, we're going to start with looking at, as Christians, how do we, in our community of faith, understand humans, and what does that look like? So how would you respond to that, Dr. Grange?
Yeah, that's a question that I've explored a lot. Of great interest to me. And I appreciate that framework that you added of, as a Christian, how do I understand that? So, like many, I start with the description given us in the Genesis story that we were created in God's image. And that is my starting point. And being created in God's image means we have features similar to the one who created us. Now, we're not the same. We're created. He is the creator. But we have many of the same features that he has. He has designed those into us.
Yeah. Yep.
For example, God is creative. Well, so are people. We each have a unique way of seeing or describing or drawing or painting or sculpting. All kinds of ways we're creative. Creative with how we prepare food, music, just so many ways that we are creative also.
Sure.
God is just. And I'm told by anthropologists, we don't need to teach children how to say it's not fair. That we have that sense of right and wrong and how it ought to be. That's just wired into us.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think we're like our creator.
Yep.
And certainly God is relational, and we are highly relational. So there's just so many examples. We are similar to the one who designed us. Why? Because he designed us.
Indeed. As we think about the idea of things ought to be, there's a recognition on the part of everybody, at least when they're being honest, that, things oftentimes aren't the way that they should be. So that begs the question, yes. Like, if things aren't the way that they should be, how do we, living in a system that isn't the way it should be, how do we thrive? How do we, live in a way that's authentic to who we are and how we've been created, and, do it in a way that allows us to expose to the best ability that we can the way that we've been designed?
So I've observed that when we live congruent with our design, we flourish. And when we live incongruent with the design, we flounder. So that has led me to ask questions along lines of, well, what is it that we really need in the way we're designed? If our needs are met, likely things are going to go better for us. If our needs are not met, we're going to struggle trying to meet them. And I am of now great confidence that what the true human needs are is to love and be loved, receive love, and to know others and be known by others. That these needs are greater than the other factors that we are encountering, maybe outside of oxygen. But in terms of needs of a person, to love and be loved, to know and be known, are really the essence of what motivates us, what we need, and when those are met, how we flourish.
Yeah, and that gets into just the relationships, right, that we have and what the quality of our relationships look like and how we navigate those. So how do people, lean into relating with other people well, that leads to conversations where they are known and loved and they can know and love others, that brings, albeit there are always going to be issues that occur, but that brings vitality to life so that both parties involved in the relationship can thrive.
Yeah, the great challenge we encounter in this world is to meet our needs to love and be loved, know and be known. We need safety.
Yeah.
But we have to be vulnerable to reveal ourselves or to receive another. Let our guard down, be open, and that's where we can get hurt. So we got this great tension between I need to be loved and to love others, to be known by others, to know others, but I also need safety.
Yeah.
And how do we get both?
Yeah.
That's the great dilemma of the human experience.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, how do you balance that? Because, like we looked at, way back in one of the first episodes that we had, the C.S. Lewis quote of "To love anything is going to mean just heartache, and if you don't want to, have heartache, in a sense, you're just going to bury it alive in a box, basically." And so, how do we navigate that those dangerous waters of needing safety in order to be known and loved and vulnerable, but also knowing when somebody is safe enough, in a sense, to risk it?
Yeah, that's the great human dilemma.
Yeah.
One of the factors that we can consider here is how we manage our boundaries. And by boundaries, I'm referring to that sense of what's me, what's not me. What I will do, what I won't do, what I'm responsible for, what I'm not responsible for. But I am always assessing how safe it is and how to proceed to try to meet the need I have to be known, understood, loved, to love another, to invest in another. We're always assessing that, and we're going to need to take risk, but we need to have a wisdom in taking those risks.
Yeah. Yep. Now, boundaries can oftentimes be a very catchy phrase that people will use. But it's great. Like, boundaries are necessary in order for us to function well with interpersonal relationships at work, in pretty much every domain of life.
Yes.
What do you think are some misnomers that people have about boundaries, and how can we correct our faulty perceptions in order to have a better understanding of this is a legitimate boundary versus maybe some standard I'm just trying to impose on somebody else so they'll kind of do what I want them to do?
Well, I think you just hit a very important variable, and that is impose on another. A boundary is mine. A boundary is not imposing on another. That's trying to control.
Yeah.
So a boundary is always something that I manage.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, factors about the Christian worldview. God has designed us intentionally, and He has made us the steward or the caretaker of the life He's given us. So we're always called to be managing, caring for, taking care of our life and our responsibilities. What we do does make a difference. When I accept what I do makes a difference, that God has designed me to have that influence, that's appropriate, then I can let go of trying to control the other so that I focus on I'm doing what is good and beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good distinction. Because I think a lot of people will often, like we said at the beginning, use boundaries as a way, intentionally or unintentionally, to manipulate the response or behaviors of others, and to recognize that a boundary is something that I do for myself. In the way that I will respond to a given set of scenarios is a good reminder, because it's protective for me.
Very often people are thinking of boundaries in the sense of my boundary is you need to do what I say.
Yeah.
And that is not only destructive to a relationship, it's impossible to enforce, and it greatly diminishes that person's sense of self. Trying to control another, I lose that person God has designed me to be.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is flip that so that I focus on what I will do, what I won't do. And in that, I can address how I'm going to have my needs met.
Yeah.
Now, very often we'd like the other to be a certain way, making it convenient for me to have my needs met. If only you would fill in the blank, then my life would be so much better.
Yeah.
That's backwards.
Yep.
We want to flip that to recognizing I need to love, I need to receive love. Towards that end, I am going to do blank.
Yeah.
At that point, we start to flourish because God has designed us to be actors in our world, not mere responders.
Yeah. That's good. We have agency in the way that we can move through the world.
And so many of us, for many reasons, have come to believe that we're relatively helpless, or maybe fully helpless, and that we're just dependent on what others do, and that leaves us just being tossed to and fro.
Sure. How do we balance then, that need to have agency in the world because we do, but also balance it with the reality that there's just a lot of stuff that is outside of our control?
That is, again, in terms of our human dilemma, many, many things impact us, influence us.
Yeah.
But they're not about us, and we can't control them. So weather's a good example of this. I'm not a hot weather person.
Amen.
And when it's really hot, it impacts me.
Yeah.
But it's not hot because of me.
For sure.
Nor do I have the ability to make it not hot. So inside the scope of what are my choices, I need to be realistic, accepting what it is. I could, just whine about how hot it is in a given time, and nothing has changed other than I am now more miserable.
Yeah.
Part of what we do to flourish is we recognize and accept what really is. Now, acceptance doesn't mean endorsement.
Sure.
And I've seen a lot of people struggle. Well, I can't accept that because it's wrong. Well, I encourage them to differentiate accepting, acknowledge that is what it is, and we have to figure out how to cope with it.
Sure.
Acknowledging it's wrong could be a step in coping with it. But if we don't accept it, we are in kind of the old Don Quixote battling the windmills. We're in a scenario where we're fighting against something that nothing is going to change from.
Yeah.
So we accept, and then inside that acceptance, what choices do I have?
Yeah.
If I let go of the choices I don't have, that opens a space to identify the choices I do have. And sometimes it's really helpful to talk to another person to help us see
Sure.
that.
Yeah, most definitely.
That can be helpful.
I mean, it really is when you start to, they're all, as is not surprising, most of life is interconnected, right? And so as we talk about this idea of owning the agency that we have in life while also recognizing there's a lot of stuff that we just can't control, really does fundamentally come down to a clear understanding of boundaries and how to use those well in every area of life.
Right. And that the boundary is not something that I impose on another.
Yeah.
Boundary is how I take care of me.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and that's part of the equation of what gets us to being able to thrive as the humans that God has designed us
Yes.
to be.
Yes. And just even acknowledging I have needs.
Yeah.
And I need to be known.
Yep.
I need to have a few people understand me to some degree. Even just acknowledging that can free us. Actually, it becomes safer to explore that with others.
Yeah.
But if I deny it,
Sure.
I'm telling myself, in essence, it's not safe. Don't go there. And yet I need to.
Be sure to join us next week as we continue to explore what it means to be human and how we can thrive when we understand that. Embracing New Life is a production of New Life Resources, a Christian counseling clinic in southeast Wisconsin, whose aim and goal since 1976 has been to provide high-quality professional counseling, psychological, and consulting services from within a Christian framework.